till US has imposed a tariff of 35% and the other were charged up to 30%, there was no worry at all. But when Trump has failed to stop the war between the Russia and Ukraine, then suddenly it has come in its mind that who is sponsoring this war machine? War machine is that who is buying the goods from Russia and then Russia is using that money to unleash the war on Ukraine. And now it is 3 years that the war is still continuing and it is bothering Trump dignity. So that kind of idea which has come in his mind that it is the war machine financed by India. But but in the course he has forgotten that China is also buying the oil and Europe is also buying something from Russia, even though the sanction is imposed. Sanction means the payment system has been choked through SWIFT, which is dominated by United States. India is grappling with the situation that how to pay 50% tariff on the goods exported by India, but it has excluded pharmaceutical and mobile phones. There will not be a harsh tariff on that, but China has escaped from higher tariff, whereas the rivalry of US is with China. The fact is that China is emerging as a competitor of United States in every field like technology, manufacturing, education, and other advanced innovation like AI also. But at the same time, United States dependence on China is on rare earth minerals, on which China has got abundance, and without that rare earth minerals, it is not possible that US can indulge in some sophisticated products like defense equipments, electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and all that. So therefore, there is an interest in China that it can cut down the supply of rare earth minerals. So it is threatened by China because after all both are very dominant economies. So if the export is reduced, so will the export on the other side will also reduce. This is worrying Washington. India has very limited products to export when it is a question of trade only. Let us for the moment forget about the non-alignment policy that India has been adopting when there was a Cold War between the USSR and United States. So these were the two competing superpowers, and it was decided when Indira Gandhi was the prime minister that India will prefer to be non-aligned, and something was in the waiting at that time also. Something was waiting that India definitely will become the liberalized country, because after it is being ruled by the colonial countries, imperialism, it was certain that the progress will be there, and the non-alignment was preferred. Now, on the question of trade, it is felt that India is exporting more than it is importing from United States. And this is the first point of irritation. In case India has done the deal with US, then the problem would have not been there. It means US wants to pressurize India that it should also import something like energy products, defense, and dairy and agriculture. Since India's defense was dependent on USSR supply for a long time, and now it has achieved self-sufficiency also, and limited equipments are needed which can be imported from France, United States, and Russia. So that requires independence, because in multilateralism it should be left open to the country that from which market the country would like to buy the product. But still, the product made by the countries are to some extent inclusive and to some extent exclusive. China is making thousands of products, so therefore India cannot compete with China at this stage. But given the fact that the China cannot reverse its population policy so soon, and dependency ratio is very high, the workforce is aging, definitely it has been feeling some problem. United States also has the aging population. Its present fertility is hardly 1.6%, and it might be young when free trade was started, and it continued to depend on free trade that it has welcomed each country, that the interest rate, sorry, the tariff rate will remain less, but over the period of time, its balance of trade is worsening. In case the WTO would have been working, then the problem should have not been there because dispute settlement and negotiation were possible. But since WTO is dysfunctional, the Trump has decided that in case the deal is not finalized, it will charge arbitrarily 50%. But who is worried? Whether Trump is worried that if India exports less, then the consumers will have to pay the higher price? Perhaps it is not the situation, because in labor goods also, India is competing with Bangladesh, Vietnam, and China. So some supply can be done by India, so it can sideline India. But whether India, who is supplying 80 billion worth of exports to United States and making significant gain in terms of employment and also in terms of foreign exchange earning, foreign investment, and so many other collateral benefits. At this juncture, when Trump is irritated with each country and baseline tariff is 10%, will he succeed or not will depend upon that how much United States wants to maintain the relationship with big economies or those who are supplying crucial products. So therefore, it was easy for Trump to sign the agreement with United States, sorry, UK, Europe, China also, Vietnam also. There are many other countries in Africa and Latin America, those who have signed an agreement. But India is in a state of fix. Whether 50% will affect the export? Definitely, because export of $80 billion has some value. But the condition which has been imposed by the Trump, that India should stop buying the oil from Russia, because he has a myth that India is sponsoring the war machine to the Russia, and therefore the war with Ukraine is becoming terrible day after day. The war is not coming to an end for this reason only, because Russia is supplying the raw material to the countries those who are interested in buying the Russian goods. So therefore, the economy is surviving, and also its size is larger, its size is smaller, but geographical area is very vast. So therefore, Russia can survive on the supply of raw material which is in abundance, whether India buys it or not buy it. Now the question is whether India can stop buying the oil from Russia at discounted price. There are something which has to be seriously thought. That is, since 2022, India is buying oil from Russia at discounted price. At the same time, with the larger need of oil from many countries, whether the OPEC countries could have drilled sufficient supply. To this question, the answer is no. The OPEC rate remained $72 per barrel, 72 to $73 per barrel in these 3 years, because Russian oil was also purchased by some other countries. Then the thinking that the international price would have changed when OPEC countries have supplied the oil to India, then definitely the prices should have gone up. Not, it would have remained 72 to $73 per barrel. The price remained moderate, which has benefited US also. In case India stops buying, earlier when US has imposed sanction on Venezuela and Iran, it has stopped buying from both the countries. But still, it's dependent on the other OPEC countries, cannot be ignored. It requires energy for its growing population and also growing middle class. Energy needs are increasing every day. Even if, for the time being, India agrees to the threat of Trump that it should stop buying oil from Russia, the loss in saving will be the tune of $2 billion. Hardly. Given the fact that OPEC will have to increase the supply and India would be able to outsource the oil from OPEC countries. But when United States press India to buy the oil from USA, the USA is exploring the oil, is extracting the oil through fracking, and fracking is bit costlier than the OPEC, because in the OPEC countries, the oil is drilled through the open surface. Fracking requires to go down in the hills to bring the oil, and it is costly. This is the reason that the United States is also buying oil from OPEC countries and maintaining its own oil for reserve. If everything remains the same, the stopping from the oil from Russia and saving is $2 billion straight away. If Trump does not insist on agriculture and dairy, which were exempted under peace clause when Arun Jaitley was the finance minister, and he has gone to attend the ministerial meeting of WTO at Bali. So peace clause was there because United States feel that India is giving subsidy more than 50%, more than 10% to the farm sector. Otherwise, the subsidy is 9%, but because the public distribution system is well entrenched, the stocking done by the Food Corporation of India on behalf of the government of India, it also entails an expenditure of ex- subsidy expenditure of 7%, making it 16 to 17%. But in WTO, there is a clause of 10%. Definitely, it is exceeding. And since WTO is dysfunctional, and now Trump is pressing hard that India should buy agriculture produce and dairy products from United States. United States has got an economies of scale much, much larger than India. Marginal farmers and small farmers in India are more than 90%. Those who have hardly zero point 0.2 hectare to zero point 0.8 hectare of land, and roughly 9 crore people are working in the dairy, and they are all marginal, just making their livelihood when they are given concessions and supported by the government. So the Prime Minister is right in its own way when he is addressing the rally that he cannot ignore farmers and dairy owners, because the farmer suicide is already very high in India, and when United States with high subsidy pump or dump the agriculture produce and dairy products, value added by the machines, where here every process is manual, the cost of produce purified by the machines is much less, then definitely the costing will be much less and it will flood the India market, and definitely it will cause the trouble. But India can act wisely when Trump is so much irritated. They can strike the deal somewhat on somewhat on defense equipments and energy products. Leave aside the dairy and agriculture. Then some middle path is there. In case it is not properly weighed that how much saving the India has been getting on oil purchase from Russia and foregoing 80 crores, 80 billion worth of export to US. It will be a very unwise step. The middle path can be worked out while in the end of August, the Indian officials will go to US for striking a deal. Otherwise, for the moment, looking to the fact that India's products are not competitive with China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh, the costing is much less there. And if America somehow substitutes the import from other countries, then India will see the trouble because already exporters are up in the arms. They say that some subsidy should be available because the tariff is very high. Therefore, the cost reduction is becoming the priority. That is something very, very difficult, that when you are a non-aligned country and the defense equipments are bought from many countries, of course the advanced countries, so and moreover the production has started within India also. So for a moment, India should align with the United States, but as the time passes, definitely then such type of pressure will not be there, because by that time Indian economy will become much stronger because of the demographic dividend and its cultural values. Of course, at present, the dependence of students is there on the US universities, but whether this dependence can be managed or it can be left aside for some time, there is an absolute need of Indian in America because of its aging population. Immigration is needed and university seats are also required to be filled. Sometime in the days to come, Trump will become flexible because there will be a problem of squeeze in funding and also enrollment which is being reduced. The problem will emerge from all the sides. So at this juncture, it is advisable that if it is a belief of Trump that India is financing the war machine and it has spared China, and China has got something very specialized to export to United States, without which the US cannot progress. So the threat on India is very real. It has to be, a fine balance has to be struck. Thank you.